Hi there, folks. This is a tarot reading for December 2018 for the sign Aquarius, Ascendant, Moon, or Sun. And I'm using the Gemini tarot spread once again, as I am for all the videos for the different signs this month. And yeah, if you want more information on that spread, you can go check out my video specifically on it. Yeah, otherwise, we're just going to jump into it here. This is going to be the sign of Aquarius. This is always where Aquarius is in this spread. And so this is your ascendant, and then we'll continue around in the order of the astrological houses. And we've got the 13th card here that sort of ties everything together. Okay, great. So I'm going to start with a bit of an overview, see what we've got, see what we don't got. So far, it looks like we've got three major arcana: Hanged Man, Justice, and the Hierophant. And so 3 out of 13 cards as major arcana. Not necessarily anything too major going on for you this month in terms of change and energy moving around in a big way. But that's fine, you know. Not every day, week, month, or year is going to hold big, giant transformations for all of us. Next, we've got, looks like we've got 2 queens, pentacles and wands. We've got 2 pages, page of pentacles and page of swords. We've got 1 knight. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 court cards. So quite a lot of court cards in this spread, which means potentially being involved with a lot of other people, which makes sense because that's not uncommon for Aquarius anyway. Aquarius is typically involved with groups of people in general. That's kind of how they find out more about who they are, or that sort of ends up being what they're motivated to do in life, is be around a lot of people, be a part of a group, and that kind of a thing. So that'll be interesting to investigate as the reading unfolds and see what all these people are doing in your life and whatnot, and also what they refer to in terms of you and your own psychological self. Next, we've got 2 aces, right? Ace of Swords, Ace of Cups. And that's really relevant when we also consider the pages, because both aces and pages do have to do with the beginning of something. So we do have this theme of beginnings and youthfulness and maybe innocence and stuff. So we'll be investigating that some more. And then we have, it looks like we have a lot of pentacle cards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got 2 wands and 2, 3 swords, and then the least amount of cups. So we've got the most pentacles, which seems to be a theme I'm seeing for a lot of the signs this month. So we've got kind of the most emphasis, generally speaking, on worldly affairs, responsibility, jobs, doing one's duty, and things like that, you know. So that's interesting. And then the next most frequent would be swords. So, you know, sometimes I say woes with swords. Swords is definitely about dealing with kind of the harsher side of life very often, at least in many, many tarot decks. Stripped of the imagery, swords is really just about basically the refinement of power and the inventiveness and what we generally call the higher mind, which contemplates the meaning of life and things like that. In contrast to the lower mind, which is more wands, which is sort of just like the seat of individuality and the sense of self and that kind of a thing. It's also the mind that just sort of runs amok when left unchecked. So swords are also about discipline for sure. And in that sense, they actually share something in common with many of the Pentacles themes, or themes throughout the cards, I mean. Because Pentacles requires discipline, but it's not necessarily about discipline. So we've got mainly Pentacles and Swords, and that's kind of a strange dichotomy, because while the Swords cards in this deck commonly show people struggling and suffering, right? The Pentacles cards typically show people like doing a lot of work or having abundance or things like that. And Earth and air tend to sort of cancel one another out. Earth was considered to be cold and dry by and large by in Greek medicine, and air was considered hot and moist. It's not quite that way in this tarot deck and many tarot decks. I get more of a wintry vibe from the swords than a warm and moist vibe. But in any case, like swords and pentacles are kind of antithetical to one another in a sense. So there's kind of being pulled in two directions here for you this month. And sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit, maybe too much about the meanings of these things. And if you're familiar with tarot, you probably just want me to get right into it. So yeah, let's just do that. I'm going to start with Justice in the center there. This is the card that sort of is the common thread through, it represents the common thread through everything else happening this month. And so Justice is kind of an honorary swords card because of that sword she's holding. She also has the scales, which we also find in the Six of Pentacles, not featured here. But, Justice is about basically not only balancing things, but it's impartial, right? It's not, it doesn't play favorites or anything like that. The sword it holds, can knight a peasant or a king, or it can chop both their heads off, or all that good stuff. So there's this strong theme of trying to find a balance here this month, but not so much trying to find a balance in terms of like your own efforts, but it's like it's a balance is just happening whether you want it to or not. Something is coming to a head, and it probably has something to do with all these people that you're involved with in the form of the court cards. I would sort of suspect it's maybe kind of like Justice is saying, like, okay, you guys, like, get your shit together, or no one is going to get anything, that kind of a thing. That's sort of the vibe I get. So we'll return to that as we go throughout the reading. Let's go to the Ascendant here, the Hanged Man. On some level, your hands are tied. On some level, you are in a situation which is very binding and limiting, and which you feel like perhaps you can't get out of. You're stuck in between these two court cards. Whoever this person is in your 12th house, is kind of skeptical about whatever it is you're doing, or maybe the perspective that you're offering. If you're offering a different upside down perspective, some, again, trying to see things differently or whatever, maybe you've stepped out of the equation and this person is very skeptical of you and kind of annoyed at you. And then this person is just kind of dwelling upon, whatever it is they have. They're sort of like lost in dreaming or obsessing over what they have or what they want. And it seems like perhaps what they want is actually this. They want to be free of some kind of a burden. And they would rather just sort of enjoy the fruits of their labor and what they have and just sort of be free. It's almost like an older woman who has a lot of responsibilities, who maybe wants to retire, whether from an actual job or from the responsibility she has, and just, enjoy life, enjoy kind of the last years that she has, and, enjoy old age instead of fear it and fear death and stuff like that. So this is a person that's clearly like turning away from that. The King of Wands here. Sorry, did I say queen? I probably said queen earlier. No, it's the king. So we have a queen and we have a king. We have two monarchs, basically, not two queens. Although you never know. The King of Wands could easily be an old queen, if you catch my drift. This King of Wands is sort of like, it's interesting, a person with a lot of power sort of waiting and listening and sort of seeing what this person does. And the 12th house, this is a person that may be kind of going behind your back or offering you bad advice. King of Wands is in the 11th, which is the house of friends. So this is clearly an ally or a friend who may be looking out for you and like looking to see what this person does and just sort of waiting and watching patiently, trying to make sure nothing gets too out of hand. So let's see what's aspecting you. You're aspected by the Nine of Pentacles, the Eight of Pentacles, so we have 8-9 happening, and the Knight of Wands. Curiously, the Knight of Wands is, I don't know, strange. I don't quite know how he fits in here, but he's in the 6th house of obstacles and enemies, which is a generally good place to have something like the Knight of Wands, because it will signify, generally speaking, fighting against enemies and usually overcoming them and that sort of thing. But here it looks like he's on a quest for kind of this Holy Grail type situation. Reminds me of the story of the quest for the Holy Grail. So that'll be interesting to look at in a moment. But, the Pentacles aspecting, I think, is pretty clear. On some level, I think you're in this state of pause or reflection, this sort of extreme state of pause or reflection, because you're trying to figure out, how do I take my skills and what I'm good at and do something with them that I really love and enjoy, perhaps. I think that's very much what you're sort of wondering there. And this is the 3rd house. This is the 3rd house, which means that on some level you're looking for fulfillment in the simple things in life, in everyday life. It's not a great card necessarily in terms of overcoming small obstacles that the 3rd house also can signify, but it is an auspicious card in becoming like more down to earth and grounded with sort of your spirituality. So if you're somebody who's been doing some kind of intense sadhana, intense practice, like a lot of meditation or tantra rituals or prayer, or just like really intense work spiritually, because we've got this card of work in the 9th house of spirituality, then basically you're perhaps in a transition this month from doing all this intense stuff, all these maybe retreats and things, to like a more embodied spirituality where you're not working so damn hard for something. You're no longer in this mindset of I have to work to see God or be spiritual or be fulfilled or feel like I have a purpose in life. Because it can also be a non-religious thing for those of you watching this who aren't connected to that kind of thinking about things, saying God and the divine. It may just be that you're working really hard to find your purpose in life or to prove yourself to the greater social order or something like that. And now you're looking at transitioning from that to being more fulfilled in the simple things in life, in communing with nature and the animals, realizing that nature and the natural flow of things is not something that has to be separate from you and where you live and your work life and that kind of thing. So who knows, it could be a desire also to move to the countryside if you're living in a city or something like that. I'm not totally sure, but it's definitely, there's definitely something really nice happening here for you, I think, in terms of that stuff this month. So that's really cool. And then we have the Knight of Wands in the 6th, and the 6th house definitely can have a lot to do with sort of spiritual practice, austerities and things like that, like because it has to do with self-improvement and the urge to, refine oneself, which is also very much a Hanged Man kind of theme again. So we do see that perhaps this was something you have been doing very aggressively in your hopes of finding some sort of like ultimate fulfillment, but perhaps you've been, or not ultimate fulfillment, but some sort of bliss, some sort of fulfillment. This is not ultimate fulfillment. That would be more the world, sorry. But yeah, the Ace of Cups is some sort of, blissful thing or new beginning or seed of love. Maybe you're fighting for something you love or someone you love or whatever. But, both these cards came out reversed. The Hangman's reversed. And I think that this is easily a sign of just, again, you've just been like overdoing it perhaps with that stuff. It wouldn't surprise me. And I think it's kind of a double-edged sword to have this card here, because in the seventh house of relationships, you're making this like outside of yourself. You know, you're putting this far in the distance, this like new emotional beginning, and you're really like struggling to find it. You think that, you know, performing intense austerities or sadhana or doing really, really hard work is going to get you here. But there's really no evidence for that. I mean, it's upside down, and it's just very questionable if that's really going to get you there. If anything will get you there, I would actually say it would be the Nine of Cups. Again, giving more attention to daily life and fulfillment in daily life. That is probably the most supportive thing for this. In terms of, I'm skipping around here like I usually do, but in terms of actual relationship and romance and stuff, there's definitely the potential for it this month, but it's in its seed state and it needs to be nurtured, so to speak. So that means that you probably need to come out of your shell and give love a chance, so to speak. Give yourself a chance to experience the good things again. Third and seventh here having to do with pleasures and desire as well. So, but for some reason, yeah, this is blocked. And I don't know, maybe you're fighting for someone. Maybe the person you're interested in is bombarded by someone else or in a relationship with someone else or something like that, or their life is kind of in a lot of transition and upheaval. So you feel like this has to be on hold. This has to wait. I don't know. But here in the eighth house, which is something unknown to you, something hidden that's influencing from behind the scenes, and which you may be a little bit afraid of, is really, it's an offering of a gift. It's a youthful offering. It's not a grand gesture. It's not a grand gesture like this knight might be making. It's a simple offering. You know, it's just whatever you have to give, so to speak. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, you know, being simple, being yourself, right? Being more innocent and that sort of thing. And Aquarius has a tendency to get really idealistic, like extraordinarily idealistic and disconnected because of that idealism. So the Page of Pentacles is a mode of being that you may be less familiar with. And it just represents, again, simplicity, down-to-earth kinds of things, down-to-earth kinds of gestures and stuff. You know, like if this is a relationship, romantic thing that I'm seeing, it's the type of thing where you don't have to make these grand sweeping gestures like, you know, Romeo and Juliet status or, taking the person out to like a huge dinner or like the best date ever or something. It's more like the simple, like, let's go for a walk together, or I made you this thing because I know you like doing these things. And, I realized I could make you this thing, and it's just a gesture of friendship and kindness, you know, no big romantic sweeping gestures. That's not what this is about. It's just about taking a chance, taking a risk and whatnot. And, you know, you've got, in terms of risk taking too, you've got the Ace of Swords in the fifth house, which is the house of risk and empowerment. So this is the opportunity to think anew about that stuff, to be more creative, right? Sorry, my nose is itching like crazy, which is maybe a some kind of omen. I don't know, as I do the reading. But anyway, the Ace of Swords here is just, well, I'll probably come back to this. But yeah, it's a new beginning of how you think about the power you have and your ability to take risk and whatnot. And I think that too, it's also like the more you just sort of be joyous and not be attached to past, present, future stuff, the more you can get beyond maybe these obstacles signified by this knight in the sixth. You know, you can just sort of swoop in and go right over him, because these two aces can more or less easily connect to one another. And this Ace of Swords is, I just feel like it's transcending this conflict here, whatever this conflict may be. Okay. So we kind of skipped around a bit like I like to do, but it's all good. I'm going to skip again to the fourth house here. Fourth house, because it's another major arcana, so it's a more emphasized area of life for you right now. We're looking at like the sense of who you are is definitely emphasized. The deep-seated cause or root of everything is some powerful stuff. Some readjustment needs to take place, some balancing needs to take place. And then the fourth house of your home, which this could easily be a dissatisfaction with tradition. It could be a dissatisfaction with your one of your parents or something like that, or mentors or teachers. But it is definitely, I think it is definitely suggesting some sort of, that in order to feel like peace of mind and just feel good in general, and just have like a healthy private life and living situation, some things are going to need to be reassessed. And it's almost like the Hierophant is maybe the like sort of the cause of all this work you've been doing. Like, you think, again, in order to be spiritual, perhaps you have to do a lot of work. But that's a very linear concept. That's a very Western modern concept. The notion of work and doing a lot of work and doing a lot of austerities is a purely mental thing. That's the thing. We're just appeasing the mind with everything we do practically. We're trying to convince our mind that we are worthy of something or deserve something, or that because we've done X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C now needs to happen. It's just like we're just trying to convince the mind. But most of that is just mental fog and illusion. So again, like, why are you doing all this work? Why do you think you need to do work to be spiritual? That's a major theme. The Knight is also influencing, right, along with the 8 here, and then the Page of Swords. So there's a lot of there's a lot of conflict. There's sort of a conflict that you're experiencing again between, like, on some level you are skeptical of this. You're beginning to question things. Page and Ace of Swords. He's aspecting, he's coming after. So there's kind of a skepticism influencing this, sort of turning things on its head. And I think it's perfectly natural, honestly, especially with this card here in the 12th. You're starting to feel the potential to actually perhaps be fulfilled or see spirit in everyday life and be more connected to it directly in a down-to-earth manner. And so that's one of the things that's like, it's the 12th from the 4th, so causing some kind of upheaval to how you've grounded yourself in the past through some kind of traditional ethos or whatever. This could also be a question of, like, do I really even want to get married, so to speak? If there was, if there's a marriage factor for you this coming month, this is kind of questioning that, questioning life after marriage, and do I really even need to be married? Could easily be that kind of theme. And it's important for you to ask these questions, because oftentimes we do very traditional things for all the wrong reasons. We do them because we were never exposed to other cultures, or because we felt guilty if we didn't do them. A lot of it just has to do with our upbringing. And so this is a period where you are very privately questioning these things. So you're probably, most people in your life aren't going to know you're questioning these things unless you tell them. And whether you tell them or not is up to you, but don't expect people to, like, know what's up. This is kind of a hidden thing that's happening for you now. They may see this, they may see that you are in kind of a state of suspended animation, or you've withdrawn for some reason, but they're not really going to know why at the end of the day. And the Knight of Wands aspecting is a bit of like belligerence surrounding all this stuff too. Like, the Page just wants to ask the tough questions. The Page is saying, well, okay, but the Page is asking things, to give like a really simple example. The Page is asking things like, how come in Genesis it's the word for God is Elohim, which is a plural noun that is both masculine and feminine, and we translate it as God? So like, metaphorically, it's like you asking the priest, like, why have you been saying it's God for all my life? But that's not even a good translation. It's plural, and it's masculine, feminine in Hebrew. what's up? Why have you never, what does that mean? It's not even why have you never told me that? It's just what does that mean, right? Why is it translated like this? The page is not emotionally attached, right? We don't have the Page of Cups here to get emotionally beat up. But we do have the Knight of Wands, which can be kind of belligerent. And the Knight of Wands can kind of say something like, well, now I'm going to battle you. I'm going to debate with you. Not necessarily even because of feeling personally upset over this, but because it's like the knight wants to debate this priestly figure here, because it's like, well, can't we get to the real stuff? Can't we get to the real grail instead of the fictitious grail? Like, what else is there? Like, tell me more. Like, let's explore this together. But the Hierophant character is not going to really be open to that. So you may be crusading to try to find that from this person or this tradition. It's doubtful you're going to. And that's okay. The Hierophant serves a certain purpose. And just like all the cards, when his purpose is exhausted, we need to move to the next card. And actually, the next card after the Hierophant is the Lovers. So what does that mean, right? Well, instead of being all austere and very serious and all this kind of stuff, we got to move to the domain of the Lovers, which is kind of loosely what this card may be hinting towards, even though it's the Ace of Cups. And the Lovers is about finding what you love to do and engaging in pleasures and sort of investigating that realm instead of hiding from it, as the Hanged Man and the Hierophant are often want to do, And Justice is also a very judgmental card as well. So you may be feeling like, you may be feeling very judgmental toward yourself, and in the background there may be even like the stern voice of like your aunt or your mother, or your grandmother, or something like this very traditional kind of harsh woman figure in your life, kind of making you feel like you'd be committing an injustice if you sort of go ahead with what it is you really want to do now, as things sort of come to a head. Let's go back to the second house for a moment. This is like finances and family life. And so I think this is probably going to be related to your mother as well. So maybe she's interested in this stuff too, but it's also on a more mundane level. If we talk about like finances and what sort of supports you, it's again, taking the abundance and power that you have because you're dissatisfied with it and doing something more beautiful with it, beautifying your life more instead of just holding on to things. And the page influences, so it's also, the page is kind of influencing, saying go back to a more childlike state of dealing with money and finances and things like that. And the King of Wands is influencing this, which I don't know what to make of that, really. These are not very compatible cards. So there may be some impatience here. There may be someone that's impatient, maybe your father, or just the feeling of really impatient, wanting things to change quickly and not really doing the work to allow them to actually allow them to change, just wanting it right away, for going from 0 to 100. This is in the position of hopes and dreams. So yeah, your hopes could be kind of interfering a bit with your ability to actually deal with this because of impatience. So I would say, contemplate that and see what you get from it. And then the Ace of Swords is aspecting, which I don't know, could easily symbolize kind of an escapist mentality of like, I just don't even want to deal with this. I just want, again, things to just resolve themselves. I'm wondering if my my itchiness as an omen could be, kind of reflecting this impatience that I'm seeing in this spread, and kind of also, when you're itchy, it's energy that. Sometimes it's energy that wants to move but doesn't really know where to go, so to speak. It's just kind of moving around, and it's also agitation for sure. Not that I feel particularly agitated, but all these things everything that happens during a reading is related to the reading, right? Or can be. So it's kind of an omen for perhaps, Aquarius feeling a little agitated this month, and the energies are kind of just sparking here and there, and they don't know what to do with them because you've been in this hanged man phase for so long or whatever. Or I'm just itchy. I don't know. Okay, so we talked about the 9 here, but we didn't talk about what was aspecting this 9. The hanged man, which makes sense. The Ace of Cups and the 6 of Swords. That's interesting. We didn't really talk about this 6 of Swords yet. I feel like, while the Ace of Cups is complementary and the hanged man is even complementary to a certain extent, making this very possible to realize this month. And the ace is, going to provide sort of the free flow to let this happen if you can just, sort of obtain this, whatever it is, and sort of give love a chance, right? The 6 of Swords is kind of like a pessimistic mentality that's creeping in. That's like, I can't possibly do that, and I should just move on. I should just keep, moving on, and I can't possibly do this. I should look for fulfillment elsewhere. It's upside down. It's not a particularly strong card here in this spread. I don't think it could necessarily ruin this, but it could certainly interfere with it and delay it. It's also the 10th house of work, and job and career. So it's feeling very dissatisfied with what you're doing right now. And, this card by itself is moving toward the King of Wands, right? So it's moving towards perhaps you're going on a journey, moving perhaps towards a more empowered place of being, quite possibly. Or you're maybe depending too much upon a friend or a father figure, something like that. So, but all in all, it's like professional life and gains this month look kind of challenging, kind of generally challenging. Although then again, moving from the 8 of Pentacles to the King of Wands, that's not so bad. That's not too shabby, right? It's being more empowered individually, after sort of giving up this like overly work oriented mentality that's sort of dominating your spiritual life. So that could be very auspicious. The King of Wands, though, he just seems lonely and distracted in this spread because of what's coming after him. It seems like whatever gains you get as a result of your actions this month could be, in a sense, like spoiled by kind of this Page of Swords attitude of being skeptical, kind of offensively defensive, and being uncertain about yourself and what you're doing. It's kind of like you might gain some power, but if you don't deal with like the immediate circumstances of your life, which also involve this, right, then you may be distracted by whatever it is you achieve and gain and whatnot. So something to keep in mind. But the 6 of Swords is aspected by this 9 of Pentacles, Page of Swords, and Knight of Wands. So with this card, you are trying to make a transition because you want something more profound, like we talked about. And you're also feeling like dissatisfied with what you've been doing. So again, it's a lot of dissatisfaction and moving on. And then the Knight is very much about movement and exploring new domains. So yeah, you're kind of jonesing to move somewhere. You're jonesing to change things up quite a bit. And it could just be something simple. This isn't a huge move or a huge change, but it is some kind of move or change for sure. Okay, let's see if we can talk about the Ace of Swords in the 5th house. This also has to do with children too, so it could have to do with like disciplining your children or something. But we've got 3 court cards aspecting that place. So I would say it's almost like, now it makes more sense to me. You're beginning to have some new ideas about who you are, right? Like we talked about. But you have all these other people weighing in on that and maybe trying to direct you towards what they think you should do or be. Now, whether that's good or bad or just neutral, I don't really know. It's hard to tell, but you're probably going to have a lot of people telling you what to do with your new idea. My advice with the ace being there is to just, you can listen to them, but don't let it touch the seed just yet. Be open to just exploring things. The more you can feel into things with this Ace of Cups, the more the thoughts will become clear, and the more the advice or things other people are doing or saying and weighing in on will not be as important, or just be clearer, like if it's good advice or not, or if it's a good influence or not, or whatever, where it's coming from. It's also this attitude of being like, trying to do something new financially, maybe, and with work, trying to be more empowered in who you are and trying to sort of hold on to what you have, or just like kind of an old way of thinking about finances and being in the world and stuff. So these are also attitudes that could be influencing your thinking about yourself and whatnot. And if this is related to children as well, like I said, it kind of reminds me of like a fresh start with kids or your kids, and maybe like disciplining them or something like that. There's other things it could mean, but I'm hesitant to say those things because they're a bit more heavy duty and personal. So I'm not going to say that. You can always order a reading with me and we can talk about more heavy duty stuff one-on-one if you want to go that route. But let's see. Okay, let's move back to let's do the sixth house real quick. We've got Hanged Man, Hierophant, and Six of Swords aspecting this sixth house, and it's kind of like trying to avoid conflict is what these three aspecting this are. It's like a conflict avoidance kind of thing, escapism, and not dealing with this obstacle that you're desperately trying to overcome deep down inside. So there's definitely a pattern of avoiding that and whatnot. And so I would recommend being conscious of that, because you can't avoid it, but that doesn't mean you have to be controlled by it either, right? If you can be more clear-headed, you can actually find a way to just leap past this and into the domain of, new love or new bliss or something like that. So pretty simple there. The seventh house is aspected by Page of Swords, Nine of Pentacles, and Eight of Pentacles. And again, this is being skeptical about the value of the heart. This is overworking yourself. And really the only one that's supportive is the Nine. The Nine is, basically as you become more in touch with sort of the pleasures of the world in a more spiritualized way, not in a like lustful, debaucherous way, okay, in a more like mature way, the pleasures of the world, and the world is here to be enjoyed, not to be scorned, that can help to open the doors to new bliss, so to speak, new love, all this kind of stuff, enjoyment. So that's cool. The Page of Pentacles, we kind of already talked about that as the eighth house. I think that like these new experiences signified by the seventh house can also like open the doors to a new way of dealing with your finances and even with your family life, whatever your family life may be at this time. So that's pretty simple, I think. And there's a lot of influences upon this page here. Again, like a father, mother kind of influence of feeling like this is how I should be, this is what I should do, or whatever. Or this is what I should be like as a person, and this is what I should concentrate upon in my own affairs. But the Ace of Swords, again, is the positive influence here, sort of suggesting that this unknown territory is something that is best explored more innocently and without these distractions of the past. Ninth house has Ace of Cups aspecting, Hanged Man aspecting, and Hierophant aspecting. Again, it's all just pointing to a dissatisfaction with how you've been sort of treating yourself and how you've been believing in your own purpose and that kind of a stuff. That kind of a stuff. Geez, where am I going with this? Yeah, just again, that overworking yourself kind of mentality to prove yourself to God or the universe or the society or whatever, believing that you have to work for fortune and just starting to feel a dissatisfaction with that. Why am I doing that? It's not really fulfilling. So that's cool. I think that's really cool. We talked about the 10th house here already, and 11th house we kind of already talked about. I don't have really too much to say about that. As far as the cards aspecting it goes, it's just more this theme of like a lot of other influences upon your hopes and wishes. And the question becomes like, how realistic are your hopes and wishes? That's kind of the question that the tarot is sort of advising you to ask, I think. How realistic are they? Are they even really fulfilling? You have power, but do you really have anything beside power? Especially with that Ace of Swords there. Excuse me. Page of Swords, finally, again, the 12th house we come back to. Let's see, Ace of Cups aspects it. Hierophant aspects it, and Six of Swords aspects it. So what does that mean? Well, again, as we usually see with the 12th house, it's something we would do better to let go of that's no longer really serving us, and that's sort of pulling our strings from behind the scenes. So, or in this case, it's this kind of bashful skepticism that you may be afraid to sort of unleash because it could totally transform your life in a lot of ways. And again, this card is kind of a pessimistic attitude about that. The Ace of Cups is sort of a secret longing for it, and the Hierophant is kind of a tension of don't transgress tradition, remember your roots and that kind of thing. But this is purely mental. This really has nothing to do with your real roots. It's purely conceptual, whatever it is, whether it's religion or an ideology or a series of traditions of like every year on this day we do this and blah, blah, blah. It's not, there's no strong reality to that. And so you're kind of going through a bit of a crisis here that could result in a major change of reference later on down the road. It's beginning this month. I don't know that it'll come to a head, but it's sort of beginning for you. Okay, so that was a little bit of an awkward, very itchy video, and my throat is also kind of dry for some reason. I do apologize, but I hope that this reading was helpful for those of you who have prominent Aquarius placements. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, check out my website for individual readings, share this stuff far and wide, check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and so on, and otherwise have a great month.